Hi and welcome to the Malat Cookery channel. So today for the family meal I'm going to be making calzone pizzas. So there are lots of ways to make calzone pizza depending on which region of Italy you look at. The version I'm going to show today is one that's been shown to me and I really prefer this type of calzone pizza. The spice blend from the Malat range we're going to be using is an Italian seasoning. And if you haven't got access to the Malat range of seasonings, then you're going to need as a bare minimum a teaspoon of good quality Italian herbs, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder, and a good quantity of salt and pepper to season this dish really well. As usual, a full list of ingredients will be given at the end of the video, so let's have a look at those ingredients now and anything else we're going to need for today. So the ingredients for today's recipe, and I'll start with the pizza dough. 500 grams of bread flour, so a nice strong flour. I'm going to be using 4 tablespoons of olive oil, teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of sugar, 450 millilitres of lukewarm water, so just warm to the touch, and a 7-gram sachet of fast action dried yeast. And for the filling, I'm going to be using, and you can use basically anything you like, but I've got some sliced mushrooms, 1 red bell pepper which I've sliced. Just make sure any veg that you put into the calzone is sliced thinly. I've got 1 small onion which has been sliced. Again, you can use red or white onion, it doesn't really matter. I've got 6 rashers of streaked smoky bacon, so that's about 250 grams. Going to be using some chopped tomato, a teaspoon of sugar. We've got 15 grams of the Malat Italian seasoning, or use whatever seasoning you have. Also going to be using about 2 tablespoons of tomato puree. And as well as that, we're going to be putting in some mature cheddar cheese and some parmesan as well. So the first job we need to do with this calzone is prepare the dough. So I've got our lukewarm water in a jug. Empty in our fast action dried yeast, mix it in well, and then I'm going to leave this to stand for 5 minutes. So once the yeast mixture has stood for 5 minutes, we can get the rest of the dough ingredients prepared. So in goes the salt and the sugar into the flour. So this is our mixing bowl for the food mixer. So we want a really elastic dough, a lot of elasticity in the dough, which means kneading it for quite a long time. So I'm just going to be lazy today. Rather than knead the dough by hand for 15 minutes, I'm going to be using a food mixer with a dough hook. I'm going to let that do all the work. So we're going to actually be kneading it in the food mixer for 10 minutes. So we just combine all of the dry ingredients for the dough, just to make sure that everything's mixed through thoroughly. So we've got our mixing bowl into the machine, dough hook attached. So I'm going to be placing this on a middle speed setting, add the water a little bit at a time until we get a dough. And then I'm going to leave it on just slightly higher than a middle speed setting. Leave the machine for 10 minutes then, so that that dough gets kneaded correctly. Okay, so once we have our dough, I've got a large bowl which has been lightly oiled. Place the dough into the centre. I'm going to cover this now with food wrap and put the bowl in a warm part of the house until the dough has doubled in size. So our pizza dough is now doubled in size. What I'm going to do next is take it from the bowl, weigh it, and split it into 6 equal portions, and I should get around 150 grams of pizza dough per portion. Okay, just look how soft, light and elastic this dough is. Absolutely perfect. So once we've got our pieces of dough, the next thing to do is to shape them and place them onto a tray which has been lightly floured. So I'll just show you how I do that. So take a piece and just work it so we get a smooth outer skin. Place the dough between my forefinger and thumb, and then start to squeeze in with the forefinger and thumb while pinching the bottom and feeding that up through. And what we're actually doing here is we're creating some surface tension on the dough itself. So once you've done that, place it with some nice space in between. So choose a tray that's large enough. Can I show you again? So I'm just feeding this dough underneath. Take it between your thumb and forefinger. Start to squeeze in while you're feeding the dough up from underneath. Almost like a balloon. And then place it with the creases down onto our floured tray. And just do that with all of them, obviously, until you've done everything. Okay, so that's the last one done. So the next thing I'm going to do with this tray is I'm going to cover it with food wrap or cling film, and then you've got two choices. I'm going to be placing these into the fridge and leaving them to do a second proofing for 4 hours, so a nice slow second proofing, just to improve the flavour of the dough itself. Or if you don't have time, just leave it again in a warm place, so leave the tray in a warm place in the house until these dough balls have doubled in size, and then you can use them that way. So while we're waiting for the dough to proof for the second time, we can make our filling, and I'm going to start with the tomato sauce. So I've got a small saucepan over a medium heat. To add in our tin of tomatoes. Sugar and the Malat Italian seasoning, or whichever herbs and seasonings you're using. Just mix that in. I'm going to add the 2 tablespoons of tomato puree. Turn that down a little bit. Again, just mix that in. So what I'm going to do now is just leave this tomato sauce just to cook through for about 15 minutes. I'm just going to cook this through for about 3 or 4 minutes. Once we start seeing some colour to this bacon, we add in our sliced onion. And a sliced bell pepper. And just cook this through for a couple of minutes. And we add in the mushrooms. And again, just a couple of minutes. I'll turn the heat down from when we cook the bacon, so it's a nice gentle heat. So once our mushrooms are starting to cook, next thing is we want to add in about half of this thick tomato sauce that we've made. And just make sure that's mixed in. And then again, I'm just going to cook this through for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Just turn that heat down a little bit. You don't want this filling too wet, otherwise the inside of the calzone will be soggy and soft. So that's our filling done. So what I'm going to do now is just turn the heat out and just reserve this to one side until we actually need it. So when it comes time to making our calzone, we take one of our pizza dough balls and initially just start to flatten it out with your fingers. It's got a clean work surface, lightly floured. And then take a rolling pin, and we just need to get this base quite thin, maybe just 2 or 3 millimeters thick. Okay, so once we've got our base to the correct thickness that we want it, next thing to do, take some of this filling, place that in the centre. The mature cheddar cheese, I've just grated that. You can use whatever cheese you like, mozzarella, all down to personal preference. A little bit of freshly grated parmesan. And then in this bowl I've just got some clean water. You just want to go around the outside edge. So this will help the dough to stick to itself and create a nice seal. Once you've done that, take this side, flip it over till it meets up with the other side, and then just press that down with your fingers. Now it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to show from here, but what we need to do now is just fold over the edge. So I'm going to fold over and push down with my finger, fold over again, move my finger, fold over, and just keep doing that. So I'm actually pulling it out first and then folding it over, and then pressing down my finger just to hold it in place. And just keep doing that until you've been all the way around. So push down with your finger, fold over this side, take your finger up, move it to the next bit, fold over, and then with this last bit just fold it back on itself and then go all the way around. So it's almost like a traditional pasty. So that's what we need to do, just to create just a couple of steam holes in the top of the pastry or the dough, just to allow any steam to escape. And then we want to put a little bit of this thick tomato sauce that we have left over just across the top. You don't have to do this, but I've got a couple of fresh basil leaves from the garden. And I just want to drizzle a little bit of olive oil. And that's it, it's ready for the oven. So I'm going to be cooking this in a preheated oven, 250 degrees centigrade, so a really hot oven. I've got a pizza stone in there getting up to temperature, and then the calzone will go straight on top of the pizza stone, and this will take about 7 or 8 minutes to cook. So there you go, a really simple calzone pizza recipe. I really did want to cook those calzone pizzas on our homemade pizza oven, but it's literally only just stopped raining. Please subscribe to the channel, and as usual, if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit that like button. Thank you very much for watching.